إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. That Allah is not going to change the state of a people until they change that which is in themselves. You want to change your situation, you want to change the way in which the society looks at you, you want to change the way that people deal with you. No one's going to change that for you, and Allah is not going to change that for you until you step up to the plate first and foremost and change the narrative inside of yourselves. Now the problem is that I don't think anybody's talked about up until now is what exactly is that narrative? And while I've never been known to be a crowd pleaser, I won't try to start today. So the reality, brothers and sisters, is that we are in our situation for many different reasons. The elephant in the room, which a lot of us don't like to talk about, mind you, first and foremost is that if we are going to change that narrative, change it to what? And what exactly is the narrative that we have right now? I can tell you very simply that that narrative oftentimes in the Muslim community all across the globe is that we have traded culture. Here's where I get myself in trouble. We have traded culture for religion, and we have traded religion for culture. If I were to get up here right now and start making fun of the beard, nobody would really care. If I got up here and I started making fun of biryani or gulab jamun, I might have problems with the executive committee because of the complaints that come rolling in. We have to be honest with ourselves. We have become more dear to our culture, which has made us more dear to our sectarianism, which allows the Arabs to hang out with the Arabs, the Pakistanis to hang out with the Pakistanis, the Bangladeshis to hang out with the Bangladeshis, the Indians, well, the Indians break up because they got different types. Where are my people from Kerala at? Y'all there? This is one of our biggest problems. The easiest thing for me to say is go back to the Quran and the Sunnah. It's not really complicated. Go back to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to go back to and what the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam instructed us to go back to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا أَلْفَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا. You tell the people, brothers and sisters, all we got to do is go back to what Allah said and what the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said. They say, no. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ. If you just say to them, let's just follow what Allah sent down. Bel. They say, no. We're going to do what our forefathers taught us to do. We're going to, look, this is how we do it in Pakistan. This is how we do it in Syria. This is how we do it in Egypt. This is how we do it in Bangladesh. This is how we do it in Senegal. You are not going to change any narrative about the way in which people view Islam if you continue to view Islam as your culture. That's not going to change anything. Like it or not, al-haq mur. The truth sometimes is bitter. The second elephant in the room that we need to address before we start talking about changing any of the narratives is that this is a da'wah conference. A lot of times the Muslim community, unfortunately, our goal, our intention, our niyyah for why we do things is oftentimes at the bottom of the barrel. Why do we do a lot of the programs that we do? Why do we have a white guy here with blue eyes to speak on behalf of the community? Why do we want to change the narrative in the first place? Well, we want to live in peace. We want to be left alone. We want people to like us, right? I mean, everybody wants to be loved. Don't you want to be loved? I want to be loved. We want people to like us. Sure, we can change the narrative. We can make sure that people don't associate Muslims as a minority with all these different things that we want to get away from. And maybe we could continue to live our lives peacefully, get our big, 6-bedroom house, 2-car garage door, picket fence in the gated community. Go ahead, do that. But I don't think that there's a whole lot of reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that. The reality is that we want to change the narrative so that we can spread the message of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And a lot of us, we haven't bought into that message. And that's the reason why we can't change any narrative. Because we think of this as, it's not really my job. Brothers and sisters, I have a limited capacity as an individual. You, as a community, you interact with non-Muslims every single day, probably more than I do. I hang out with you. I'm at the mosque. But you're working with people at the clinic, you're the cashier, you're the doctor, you're the nurse, you're the mechanic, you're the accountant. You have the ability to impact people constantly. But if you don't have it in your intention that you're here to spread the message of Islam, then you're not going to get any of that reward. You're sitting in a gold mine in this country. Do you know how much reward the people, we don't know their names. Do you know how much reward is in the scales of the people who were the first to go to Indonesia? We don't know their names, and we don't need to. And you know what? They could probably care less. But our problem is that we're not so concerned about giving dawah to our own community and to the communities around us. We're more concerned with who's going to get elected to the board in a couple of months. Did I say that? Yeah, I said that. That's our reality. We're not really concerned. The Prophet ﷺ, he was sent, Inna arsalnaka. Or rather, Allah says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And we have not sent you except that you are a mercy to mankind. How can you be a mercy to a people that you don't have compassion for? How are you going to have a compassion for a group of people, a society that you live in, when you consider yourself an other? If you don't look at yourself as part of this society, if you don't look at these people at least at the bare minimum as your brothers and sisters in humanity, then how are you going to care about them? How are you going to call them to Islam? And the next elephant that we have in the room, my dear respected brothers and sisters, is that just like we traded culture for religion and religion for culture, we have an issue with our dawah programs. And you might not like it, but it's the reality. PR, public relations, PR, public relations, where we do things so that people see us in a good light, is needed. Sometimes it benefits us to stand in front of the school with a big check and say, look how much we donated. Sometimes it benefits us to have a basketball game with certain groups of people. Sometimes those things are needed. But those PR acts, those PR stunts, those things where we show openly, hey guys, look, we're here, we're good people, that is supposed to be the salt on the meal. Public relations should be the salt on our meal called dawah. And what we've done is we've put dawah on our meal called PR. We're more concerned about what people think about our community, not about actually having an impact in their lives. We're more concerned about presenting the check, however big or small it is, not really looking, are we actually changing the socioeconomic status of the people we're supposedly trying to serve? We'd rather have 6 or 7 people come up here and say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, rather than investing the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months it takes to actually give them the proper tarbiyah so we don't see them at a church in 6 weeks. We want to change the narrative, we have to change the mentality.
These days, everybody's on social media. You brag about your accomplishments and your friends cheer you on. But when you need help, they're nowhere to be found. That's why we created MenschMe, a new online community where people help people. You can join communities with similar interests, like teenagers preparing for college, entrepreneurs launching new businesses, or people just trying to get in shape. Ask questions, share your experience, and get tips from people who've been there themselves. Or create your own communities and invite your friends and family to join you. You can even search for any help you need, from babysitting to fine-tuning your resume to advancing your career. Find members with the right expertise and chat with them one-on-one.
The Prophet
Get the help you need, give back to the community, and help us build a better world with Mensch.me. Sign up for free at www.mensch.me.
This is a party where everybody needs to like everybody. Regardless of whether we deviate from our religious practices or principles or not, then Allah is going to hate us, and He will make the people hate us as well. Brothers and sisters, we can talk all day. We got to change that narrative. We have to look critically at ourselves and ask ourselves, what are we doing here? Because if you can't figure out what you're doing here, everything else is secondary. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. All deeds are based upon intentions, and you're going to have what you intended for. Many people came here for many different reasons. Refugees, fleeing war, fleeing all sorts of different political, economic, social oppression. And you have a right to do that. But now you are here. What are you going to do with your time here? Allah is going to ask you about it. Brothers and sisters, you have a golden opportunity in front of you right now. If I said anything beneficial tonight, even just reciting a verse of the Quran, anything is going back to somebody who taught me La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Every single time I pray, every single time I fast, every single time I read the Quran, every single time I memorize anything of the book of Allah, anytime I teach it to anyone else, anytime I pray, anytime I make sujood, anytime I make hajj, anytime I make umrah, every single little last good deed I ever do for the rest of my life is going to go in someone's scales that taught me about the message of Islam. You have that opportunity. Each and every single one of you have that opportunity. You might be saying to yourself, he's trying to kick me off stage. You might be saying to yourself, wait a second, but that's why we hired somebody like you. No, brothers and sisters, again, you interact with the people on a daily basis. You have the ability to impact people with your character. You have the ability to interact with those people and change their perspectives about Islam. Because the Prophet ﷺ was known as a Sadiq al-Amin, the most truthworthy and the most trustworthy, the most truthful and the most trustworthy. And that was important because the people can't attack Islam. What are you going to say to La ilaha illallah? You can't say anything. And for that reason, they will continue to try and attack the messengers. But know that this is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that it will not stop. The people will continue to try to detract from the messengers because they can't take away from the message. Brothers and sisters, realize that we have a lot of work to do, and it's not going to be something that's easy. But the more difficult something is, the greater that potential reward remains in front of us. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He continues to allow us as brothers and sisters, as a community, to embody the message of Islam, to continue to teach it to our children, to our communities, and make our communities a light of guidance to the rest of society. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.